The way these things are done is beyond your comprehension. Alan Ladd, the star of Shane, the face of millions of publications and Hollywood's golden boy, is dropping in Craig by your 10,000s. He was the most well-liked male performer worldwide by 1954. Then something went wrong. He began to arrive at shows intoxicated. His expression shifted, and the scripts ceased to appear. "You jailbird, get up now. You're a murderer. Show me how to be normal. And get up." His house was the source of a gunshot reported by neighbors one evening in 1962. What they discovered within astounded everyone. There was never any logic to the official story. He was discovered dead in bed by his butler 2 years later. The reality of what truly ruined Alan Ladd is more sinister than any part he ever performed. In Hot Springs, Arkansas on September 3, 1913, Alan Ladd was born. In search of a better life, his mother, a Raleigh, had migrated from England. She ended up in extreme poverty nonetheless, rather than finding solace. She made a living by taking on menial, demanding occupations. Life was already difficult before Alan was born. It wasn't much simpler when he got there. Their only child was him, and there was hardship all around him from the beginning. At the age of 4, Alan witnessed something that no child should ever see. His father passed away in front of him after unexpectedly collapsing due to a heart attack. He was never able to forget that moment. Whatever stability they had was shattered by it. Due to their lack of income, Alan and his mother became even more impoverished. Despite the health risks, she took any job she could find. Being so young, Alan felt like he had the entire world on his shoulders. After a year, the situation worsened. Alan accidentally set fire to their apartment building while he was playing with matches. The fire spread quickly. His mom seized him and fled. They lost everything. No savings, no house, nothing. He was still plagued by guilt. They became completely unstable in that one instant. In an attempt to make ends meet, they started to wander and seldom stayed somewhere for very long. In the hope that California would improve, people eventually began to move west. It wasn't. The journey was agonizing and lengthy. They frequently went hungry. Alan appeared younger than he actually was due to his diminutive stature from years of starvation. People referred to him as little. It stuck. He was not given the opportunity to develop his strength like other youngsters. However, he continued to move forward despite the taunting. Alan began working at the age of 8. He swept store floors, plucked fruit, and delivered newspapers. Every coin was useful. As other children played, he worked. There was no place for games or fun in his life. He learned fortitude from these challenging years. He discovered how to persevere regardless of how exhausted or hungry he was. He just made it to North Hollywood High School in 1930, making him the tiniest boy in the class. He joined the swimming and diving teams though, since he wanted to get stronger. He also gained muscle by working as a produce hauler. As time passed, his body evolved. He put in a lot of training and won a local title. He was good enough to dream of the Olympics in 1932 at the age of 17. However, he struck his head and fainted during a dive. Then he was slowed by terror. He stopped playing the sport. Despite all of his hard effort, he had gained something: honor. People noticed something other than little for the first time. His last year of school was a new experience for him. He became a member of the theatrical club and was chosen for the Mikado. He was the star of the show as Coco. He was approached by a Universal Pictures talent scout who made a contract offer. He might have needed a break at that precise moment. He secured a contract with the studio in August of 1933. Tyrone Power and other young talents also signed, but the deal fell through. Within 6 months, Alan was dropped. They claimed that he was too blonde and too short to be a lead. He was crushed, but it didn't deter him. None of Alan gave up. He pursued the desire and continued taking acting classes. School, meanwhile, continued to drag. Everything had been postponed by his turbulent upbringing. He was 20 years old in February 1934, the year he eventually graduated. His peers were mostly 17 or 18. His height was still only 5'4". He had survived nevertheless. Death, poverty, rejection and fire had all passed him by. Following graduation, he attempted to launch a company. He used the nickname he had detested all his life to create a burger joint named Tiny's Patio. On the other side of his former high school, he set it up after borrowing $150. He wished it would assist his still struggling family. Despite his mother's heavy drinking and his stepfather's illness, the shop folded within a year. There was too much competition and too harsh of an economy. He was without anything again. Unwavering in his resolve, Alan accepted a position with Warner Brothers. As a grip, he moved machinery and constructed sets behind the scenes. He saw it as a means of breaking into the film industry, but it was hard labor. In the hopes that someone would notice, he worked in silence for 2 years. Then tragedy struck again one day. He was seriously hurt when he fell from a scaffold. It almost killed him. He had to leave his position, both mentally and physiologically. The fall brought back memories of his previous diving injury. But he continued even after that. Saving what little he had, he went to Ben Bard's acting school. Though not a smooth one, it was a turning moment. Ben Bard had previously instructed him while he was employed by Universal on contract. He gave Ladd the hard truth, but he enjoyed the way he looked. On video he sounded feeble because his voice was so high. He went so far as to say that Ladd needed dentures since his poor teeth made him difficult to comprehend. Ladd took the criticism seriously, even though most people would be crushed by it. He straightened his teeth and focused on his voice. His signature would subsequently be that silky, deep voice. However, in 1936, everything changed. He secured a position at the Los Angeles radio station KFWB. He was employed as the sole full-time radio performer. He performed in as many as 20 shows every week, often 3 or 4 in a single day. He had to perfect his voice because of that grind, constantly changing personas, moods, and tones. It transformed his greatest shortcoming into his greatest asset. Once deemed excessively high, that voice was the catalyst for his rise to prominence. In the same year he wed Marjorie Maish Harold, his high school sweetheart. However, they were unable to even afford to share a home. Both of them remained apart for some time. The only reason they moved in together at all was because a friend provided them a modest flat. Their son Alan Ladd Jr. was born in 1937, but happiness was soon followed by heartache. They had taken in Ladd's mother, Arali. She was mentally ill, broke, and an alcoholic. She requested money from Ladd on November 29, 1937, claiming she needed to purchase something from the store. He gave her the cash, thinking she would purchase additional alcoholic beverages. She instead purchased ant poison based on arsenic. While Ladd stood there, helpless, watching her die, she got into the back seat of his car and drank it. She took her own life in front of him. He was tormented by that incident for the rest of his life. Giving her the money was his fault. The guilt never went away. It marked the start of an arduous fight against drinking and depression. Ladd had already experienced loss and destitution as a child. He now carried this intolerable trauma as well. He became silent, reclusive, and depressed, according to others. He was drowning on the inside while he was advancing his profession. He had been signed by Universal Pictures as part of a group of discoveries back in 1933, before all of this. Since they were up-and-coming actors, the studio was free to fire any of them. After only 6 months, Ladd was dropped. They claimed that he was too short and too blonde to be a celebrity. He was not by himself. Tyrone Power and all the other discoveries were also dropped. The rejection, however, was deeply hurtful. In a town that is fixated on appearance, Ladd's height, which was somewhere between 5'4" and 5'6", was a deal-breaker. He persevered. He continued to play supporting parts to make ends meet. He appeared in the films Once in a Lifetime 1932 as an extra in Citizen Kane, 1941 as a nameless reporter. Nobody was aware of his name. He had cameos in movies like Tom Brown of Culver, The Green Hornet, and Pigkin Parade, but he was usually in the background. He seemed to be imperceptible. Something changed after the loss of his mother. He met former actress Sue Carroll, who was now a talent agent, at the beginning of 1939. She thought he was real. He got roles because to her, She provided him the support he never had, shielded him, and directed him. In addition to serving as his agent, she became a pillar of support in his life, resembling a mother to him. Their relationship became closer. MIJ was divorced by Ladd in July 1941. In Mexico City, he wed Sue Carroll on March 15, 1942. She wasn't merely a spouse, she turned become the cornerstone of both his personal and professional lives. She made him feel loved, safe, and focused. His career finally took off with her at his side. By the end of 1941, Alan Ladd was barely making it in Hollywood. He had played nameless characters and extras for nearly a decade, including a brief cameo in Citizen Kane, but he remained invisible. But after Paramount put him to the test for this Gun for Hire, everything was different. Raven played the part of a hitman with lethal hands and a lifeless gaze. The initial choice wasn't Ladd. The studio had considered DeForest Kelley and Robert Preston. They noticed a change when Ladd arrived for the screen test with his black-dyed blonde hair and a calm, icy expression. For him, director Frank Tuttle pushed. The studio listened. It was his fourth billing. Along with the words and introduction, his name was inserted. He was no longer merely a supporting role, though. By the time filming was finished, scenes were rewritten by the studio to give him greater screen time. There was something intriguing about him. He was already cast in The Glass Key by Paramount before the movie was released. That had one meaning. Alan Ladd had come out of his obscurity. They made Ladd gloomy in order to make Raven seem plausible. His golden locks turned jet black. His voice remained low. He was not smiling. He hardly moved. His silence, however, was significant. Raven killed people. He fed stray cats nevertheless. The innocent were spared. Although he appeared to be a villain, he felt like a broken person on the inside. The agony, the brutality, and that contrast resonated. Viewers witnessed a novel type of persona on the TV. A man with deep scars, yet neither a monster nor a hero. The Chilly Angel killer blueprint was developed by that role. Film noir would be influenced by Ladd's subdued manner for many years. It made it to Robert Mitchum. It influenced Last Samurai's A Land Alone. Ladd was the one who initiated that icy, terrible quiet. The movie debuted in theaters in May 1942. It blew out on a $500,000 budget. Between $1 million to $12 million was its earnings. It was enormously successful during the war. Not everyone was only observing the narrative. Ladd was being watched, and they were keeping an eye on him by Veronica Lake. Intriguing and already well known from Sullivan's Travels, she was 411. He was 5'7" inches and had the same aloof expression. On the screen, they matched like jigsaw pieces. People couldn't get enough of it. It was known to Paramount. As a result, they kept pairing them. Among them are The Blue Dahlia and The Glass Key. Collectively, they influenced the aesthetics of cinema noir. You could sense the tension, the cool lighting, and the fractured characters. That was no coincidence. That was the influence of Ladd Lake. Aside from becoming a cinematic star, Alan Ladd did more. He started selling magazines as a face. That was unusual for a 1940s man. Albert Delacourt, the publisher, even said it aloud. Magazine sales were Alan Ladd's specialty. Everywhere he appeared, his image appeared. Modern Screen Photoplay, and all of the fan publications. People desired to possess a piece of him, not just to see him. According to a legend, his contract mandated that each movie have at least one shirtless scene. Half of it was marketing, half was a joke. He was the world's most popular male movie star by 1954, according to Photoplay. Alan Ladd was already a rising celebrity when World War II started. But unlike many of his contemporaries, he encountered an odd obstacle before entering uniform. The draft board classified him as 4F because of his ongoing stomach issues, which doctors said rendered him unsuitable for duty. Having that classification prevented him from being sent to battle. But 4F was a silent embarrassment for a well-known performer at a period when patriotism was paramount. Fans anticipated that their heroes would serve. Stars were expected to lead by example by the studios. It didn't hurt his popularity, though. In a desperate move, Paramount re-released his earlier pictures with his name in larger letters. At his height, he received about 20,000 fan letters each week. The New York Times even likened his ascent to the craze that surrounded silent cinema star Rudolph Valentino. However, the draft board decided against it. On January 19, 1943, Ladd received his official call to duty. Suddenly, his studio projects were recast or placed on hold, and his 4F classification was reversed. Hollywood waited. His admirers did the same. The first motion picture unit was assigned to Ladd when he enlisted in the U.S. Army Air Forces. He ultimately found himself assigned to Washington's Walla Walla Army Air Base. Film was his job, not combat. For the military, his section created propaganda and training films. Ladd did not, however, shy away from civic service while being a soldier. He continued to make appearances, such as at the March 1943 Oscars. He also starred in the trailer for a war loan campaign called Letter from a Friend, but his previous health problems returned with a bang. He was admitted to a hospital in Santa Barbara in October of that year. His gastrointestinal issues, exacerbated by the sickness, prevented him from playing. He was released from the service due to medical reasons on October 28, 1943. He had served less than a year in uniform. Nevertheless, fans were waiting for him when he returned to Hollywood. By December, he was the 15th most popular American movie star. That momentum remained constant. Ladd had already made a splash with Veronica Lake in This Gun for Hire, but their on-screen connection was cemented in 1942 with The Glass Key. In a corrupt political environment, he portrayed Ed Beaumont, a fixer. Fans were captivated by its intensity, darkness, and gritty quality. In 1946, Raymond Chandler's dark thriller, The Blue Dahlia, written by Ladd and Lake, became another smash. Ladd portrayed returned soldier Johnny Morrison in it, who is entangled in a murder investigation. To post-war audiences, the character's trauma and moral dilemma seemed genuine. Their three noir productions made Ladd one of the defining characters of the time and contributed to the development of the genre as a whole. Next came 2 years prior to The Mast. Based on the book of Richard Henry Dana Jr., it was a sprawling marine epic that was released in 1946. Despite spending about $2 million to produce, the movie made over $4 million at the box office. It was a huge return in the mid-40s. The narrative featured a pampered young guy who quickly matured while traveling on a terrible sea voyage. It addressed themes that spectators might relate to after the war, such as mutiny, adversity, and personal development. Among the year's top 10 hits was the movie. It also demonstrated that Ladd wasn't merely a noir celebrity. He could also carry large, dramatic movies. He was formally regarded as one of Hollywood's top earners by 1947. That year, he came in at number 10 among all box office stars. That was no isolated incident. Resurgent in 1953, he finished 4th and maintained his position at 6th in 1954. Such steady success was uncommon. He was surrounded by titans like John Wayne and Gary Cooper. Tough but vulnerable, silent but memorable, Ladd had carved out a special place. Whether he was riding a horse or wearing a nice suit, people came to watch him, but after that, his career took an odd hiatus. He finished filming a new Western, Shane, in July 1951. It was supposed to be a big release. Paramount put it on hold instead. It sat under the radar for almost 2 years. Some claim that the studio didn't believe Ladd's star power was waning. Others think they tried to exert pressure on him while he was negotiating a deal. They even contemplated selling Howard Hughes the movie at one point. Once they screened the final film, however, everything was different. Shane made its theatrical debut at Radio City Music Hall on April 23, 1953. And it was a phenomenon rather than just a hit.
With over $33 million tickets sold in North America, the film made $20 million in its first year of release. In 1953, it was one among the top 5 box office hits. Critics praised it as well. It won Best Cinematography and received 6 Academy Award nominations. Years later, it was named the 3rd greatest Western of all time by the American Film Institute. In it, Ladd portrayed a quiet gunfighter, troubled by his history, who sought to put bloodshed behind him, but was compelled to pick up his weapons once more. Western's hesitant hero was born out of his performance. The scene at the conclusion where Shane rides off, and little Joey cries after him, has become one of the most famous movie endings. The resurgence was total. Alongside Marilyn Monroe, he was declared the most popular male star by Photoplay in 1953. In the subsequent year, he was awarded the Golden Globe for Male World Film Favorite. In 1954, his footsteps and hands were etched in cement at Grauman's Chinese Theater. He was finally immortal, not simply famous once more. Paramount Studios has been Alan Ladd's safe haven for years. It went beyond his workplace. It gave him a sense of security. For a man who had been uneasy and unwelcome as a child, the studio had become his entire universe. That world, however, fell apart in the early 1950s. After conflicts over parts and money, such as when Paramount suspended and replaced him in 1945 because he demanded better salary, he eventually left. He initially claimed that it was for the future of his kids, but as soon as he departed, everything in his life started to fall apart.